Welcome to the Let's Talk Seahawks podcast. I'm your host, Robert Smith, along with my co-host, Adam Carver-Stellman. Today, we'll be discussing the top 10 edge rushers in the 2023 NFL Draft. Adam, let's talk Seahawks.
Let's talk edge rushers. We're on to defense. We've gone through our rankings for all the offensive position skill players. So now we're moving on to what really counts, or what looks like it's going to be a little bit more focus for the Seahawks in this draft, which is defensive line. Hopefully, that's what everyone's expecting. We certainly need it. I think that and running back are now our two thinnest positions. Let's do this.
Let's do this. All right. So the way we're going to go about this top 10 is the top 10 mainly consists of Adam and my top 5 as we rank the players in the draft. Then we're going to have 3 players that we consider mid-round players, and then a couple late-round prospects. This is a pretty deep draft. I know my guys might be a little more in the mid-round, but let's get cracking. All right. Coming in at number 10, I have Yaya Diaby out of Louisville, and Adam has DJ Johnson out of Oregon. So with Diaby, this man's a freak athlete, right? 4.51 in the 40, 37 inches in the vert, 120-inch broad jump. That's 10 feet for all of you out there. And he did it all at 270 pounds. So that's a big man, moving fast, jumping high, jumping far. I don't think he's going to last till the late rounds. I've seen him in some mock drafts go 6th, 7th round. I don't think he's going to last that far. I think he might be a 4th, 5th round guy because teams will draft him based on that athleticism. I see him as a raw prospect who he uses natural strength and explosion with his athleticism in the pass rush. So he's somebody that I think needs to develop some more moves, kind of be a little polished rusher so that he can handle what these offensive linemen are going to throw at him. He does need to improve his run defending. He's not somebody currently that I would rely on to set the edge in the run game. So we'll have to see exactly how that shakes out, which team gets him. But I like him as a developmental prospect. I think he's got a ton of potential.
Yeah, I agree. I'm actually a little shocked that you have him as low as you do. He's one of those guys that for me probably would have fallen somewhere between where I have like 9 and 8. He's not, spoiler alert, he is not on my list. But not because I don't like him. He's like, I mean, for all the reasons that you said, this is a big physical freak. Who I kind of want to, this is one of those guys that I think would be interesting to kind of hear his story. I mean, he's been in college for 6 years. I think he started out as a JUCO athlete. He was 2 or 3 years in JUCO because he didn't have any scholarships. Obviously, just beat people up in JUCO and eventually got on with Louisville. But I agree. Like he seems to be a really raw prospect still. So it looks. I mean, I don't know what the coaching staff was doing at Louisville or where he went to JUCO, but he if you watch him on tape, he can overpower guys really easily. He's very strong, very fast, very long arms. It has a great first step. But that's pretty much it. If someone tries to, move him around or finds a way to stop that initial first step, he looks a little bit lost on plays. But you look at these measurables, his physical measurables at the combine, you go, wow, this guy's a freak. So you kind of wonder, did his coaches do him a disservice? Which I think might be one of those reasons why you've seen him fall to some of those later rounds in the draft. Because, this is not a polished prospect, despite having been in college for a pretty decent amount of time. I like him. Like I said, he just didn't make my list. But good pick. I'm glad we got to talk about him.
Yeah, and he might be one of those guys who went to JUCO and then came into the NCAA and redshirted his first year and then played a couple years, got an extra year because of COVID. We're going to see that a lot. Like I said, a lot of these prospects are going to be a little older in this year's draft because they got that extra year to develop, that free COVID eligibility year. So DJ Johnson, this is not somebody I was very familiar with. I watched a few Oregon games, but he wasn't a name that stood out to me. I had to go back and look at him when I saw him on your list. What do you like about him?
I like that he's a physical freak, a lot like Diaby. This guy is another one of those guys that tested kind of off the charts. I mean, we're looking at another guy that's 260 plus pounds. I think he played as high as 275 in college. He's 6'4". Another one of those guys that was listed a little bit taller. I think he was listed at 6'5" on Oregon's website at the combine. Though that's his pro days. That's what he measured at, was 6'4". This guy ran a sub 4.5. He didn't have a lot of explosive traits. I mean, he didn't have a good broad jump or a great vertical. But you watch him on the field, and he knows how to use his body. Still a little bit of a raw prospect. He's not one of those guys that's going to rack up, or he wasn't one of those guys that racked up sacks where he was, but he was always after the quarterback. I mean, he had 21 QB hurries his last year. He was always in the backfield. Didn't get home a ton, 5 total sacks his last year of college. But this is a guy who again, I think you can take those traits and develop him into a pretty great guy. He's another one of those guys, like we'll kind of see as a theme, I think, for some of these later round guys, that good at one thing, really good at getting after the pass rusher, not a great edge setter, even with his size and length that he has. That 6'4", 260, he has a little bit of trouble stopping the run. And I think that's why we're going to kind of see him fall. He's definitely a 6th round or 7th round guy for me. I don't think any team's going to look at him any earlier than that, but I do think he's one of those guys that if you're going to take a chance on a pass rusher in one of those late rounds, he's a pretty good target.
Yeah. I kind of liked what I saw when I went back and looked at it. And, he also played tight end while he was at Oregon. He made that switch when they had just lost a bunch of guys at the position. He did it to help his teammates out. So real good team player in that regard. He has an explosive first step and that long length that helps him win one-on-one battles with offensive tackles. High motor, good use of power. All of these make him that intriguing prospect. But this is sort of the shift with this new edge position. Before, you had guys trying to fit into either linebacker or defensive end. And so if you were going to be a bigger guy, you would have to know how to set an edge. You had to play the run a whole lot better. A lot of these guys coming out are just like pass rush happy guys. And that's because they made this new position for them, this edge defender, which has always been in the NFL in some regard, but now people see it as a primary pass rusher, and there's a whole lot more to football than pass rush moves. So we're going to see that a lot, how things are changing. And even through this list, there are guys who are kind of one trick ponies, so to speak. So hopefully he develops more usefulness in the run game. He's a bigger guy, and that would be effective. So moving on, our number 9 on our list, I have Jose Ramirez out of Eastern Michigan University, and Adam has Jeremiah Martin out of Washington. I like Jose Ramirez. He had a sneaky good combine performance, really fluid in the field work, just somebody who was intriguing. He had a really good week, impressed a lot of teams. His stock started rising after the combine. I see him as a situational pass rusher. He has a really explosive first step. He can beat slower tackles around the edge. He uses his hands well. This is somebody who has a lot of potential, has some of that pass rush down. Now we need to kind of train him up in the areas that would make him a well-rounded player. But yeah, I like Jose Ramirez. That's why he's my number 9.
Yeah, I didn't watch a ton of tape on this guy, unfortunately. I did do some reading. He broke out his last year in college too, which is one of the reasons why he's kind of up in this draft. I think he had 12 total sacks in his career at Eastern Michigan, and 10 of those came in his last year. He was a sack monster his last year. The man was always in the backfield. So which is great, because obviously that shows development over time. And he put it all out there for his last year before declaring the draft, which good for him. I think that's a reason that might rocket him up a little bit. I think this is a guy that you could probably see a team take a chance on late in day 4, or sorry, late in round 4, late in day 4 of the draft. Late in round 4 of the draft. Anymore. Yeah, I know. We don't have those. No more 14-round drafts. Too bad. But yeah, again, and I think this is a theme. Again, I said it. You're going to see a lot of similar knocks on these guys that are kind of lower down on our list here. These are guys that they're really good at one thing, and they look like they have the physical skills and potential to build it to be a more well-rounded player. And I agree. He's a little bit smaller at 6'2", but he's still got the length where it counts, which is in his arms. So yeah, he'd be an interesting get if somebody was again looking for that late round kind of draft pick. Although I think there's a chance this guy sneaks up a little bit.
Yeah, he's definitely trending upward. I could see him going late 4th, maybe 5th round. Real intriguing prospect. Now you have at number 9, Jeremiah Martin out of Washington.
Yeah. I mean, look, as I've said a million times, I've kind of got those schools that I generally watch every year. And not because, I'm trying to expand my horizons. I really am. But I'm still at heart, I'm a Huskies fan. Or a Northwest guy. So anytime I get a chance to talk about guys that are from that area, I'm going to take a chance on. And for me, Jeremiah Martin is one of those guys that, obviously I know that the Seahawks have had time to scout him. Going to UW, I'm sure that they've got plenty of game tape and have had guys there look at him. This is a guy that if they're looking for someone that's going to be able to set that edge, this is that guy. He can do other things too. It's not like he's any slouch in the pass rush. I mean, he I think averaged 2+ sacks a year. But this is definitely more of an edge defender that sets that edge as opposed to gets after the quarterback. Something that we really don't have here. I mean, if you look at the Seahawks stats this last year and stopping the run, it wasn't good. It's something we need to improve on. And I think if we're going to try and build that depth back on that defensive line, Martin's a great guy for them to look at because this is a great team guy. There's nothing but good reviews coming out of Washington about him. And he is a high motor guy, high character guy, and he gets after it. He's not going to wow you with his statistics. I think he ran a high 4.8 in the combine, so he's not super fast. But again, this is a guy that knows how to use his weight and strength to get around the edge if he needs to and stop the run. And that's something that the Seahawks are missing.
All right. I'm glad you brought up his high motor. That's probably the reason that he'll get signed by a team, because I don't think he's getting drafted. I think he's going to be an undrafted free agent, and somebody will bring him into camp. He's definitely one of those guys you want to have on your team. So if he can stick, maybe make a preseason roster, hit a practice squad next year, develop those skills. I think he lacks athleticism at the edge position, but I think he lacks size to kick inside. So he's one of those guys who might, just due to genetics, end up in the Canadian Football League, the XFL, or the USFL, at least for a couple of years, to see if he develops some of those moves that he can then use to try to get back into the NFL. But yeah, high motor guy, somebody I think is a good locker room guy. All right, coming in at number 8, sort of
look at that,
the start of our mid-round tier. I have Andre Carter, the second, out of Army, and so does Adam. So poor testing saw Carter's stock just plummet. He was kind of a consensus top edge position player the entire year. Everybody was talking about him going in the end of the first round, no later than pick 40, 45. He wasn't dropping even to the middle of that second round. And then he had horrible testing numbers, just absolutely horrible. And his stock plummeted after the combine. He looks more athletic on film. So you look at his testing numbers and then you watch him play. And on film, he's fluid. He's flying all over the place. He's chasing down ball carriers. He's getting to the quarterback. He's doing all those things that made him a high prospect, but that don't really equal out with his testing numbers. Real high motor, extremely high character guy. Normally, that's what you get when you select players out of the service academies. But just one of those locker room glue type of guys. He is duct tape if you have issues in your locker room, because he can fix anything. He was a wide receiver and tight end in high school. He switched positions before his redshirt season at Army to defense. So he's only played defense for a few years, and he is really coming on. High potential. We have to see if that athleticism will be a limiting factor in the NFL.
Yeah, I think it's kind of funny that we both have him here. But yeah, like you said, this is a guy that was high on everybody's board and then just really, I mean, sorry to use this phrase, but kind of shot himself at the foot at the combine. Andre Carter had a huge profile coming into the NFL Combine. I mean, he was being talked about everywhere, and for reasons other than the fact that was just a physical monster. I mean, the guy was 6'6", 260 pounds, has the wingspan of a power forward. But and it showed out in college. I mean, when you put on the game tape, this guy looks like an NFL prospect. I think they changed the rules so that he could be in the draft. Obviously when you play for a school like Army or Navy or any of those military schools, you're expected to serve in the U.S. military at some point. And I'm pretty sure, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they did change the rules of eligibility to allow him to come out as a junior, he's a senior, never mind, but allow him to come out and without spending time on a base overseas. So, but yeah, I like this guy. This is definitely one of those guys that I think the Seahawks. I don't know if he's on their top 30 visits list, but I'm sure that they've met him and talked to him. And yeah, like you said, he's a great locker room guy. If he falls and the Seahawks are still looking for edge rushers to kind of build or to build up the trenches later in like the third and fourth round, then I hope they take a shot on him.
Yeah. And he actually is grandfathered into the old rules, and that's why he's eligible for this draft. They changed the rules that would limit service academy players. They need to serve their required military service time before they can pursue professional sports. So this is really going to hurt any new players that the service academies try to recruit. I mean, they definitely get service-minded individuals in that regard, but when it comes to the quality of their football programs and other sports programs, it will suffer because of that rule. But for the majority of the cadets, midshipmen that are in those schools, they're not there just to play sports. They're there for a higher reason. And as a vet myself, and knowing a lot of academy graduates, they won't have a hard time being able to fill out their football team because they'll have a lot of high character, high effort, high just players that come in there anyway in order to serve. At number 7, I have Carl Brooks out of Bowling Green, and Adam, you have Mike Morris out of Michigan. So Carl Brooks, real intriguing, a little bit lower quality of opponent, you might say. He played at Bowling Green. I think they're still in the MAC. But yeah, so he was against those mid-tier schools, but he was Pro Football Focus's number 1 graded edge rusher for 2022. It wasn't Will Anderson. It wasn't Carter. It wasn't any of those other higher profile guys. It was Carl Brooks out of Bowling Green. Now he had 69 pressures, 12 sacks. Granted, they all came against second-tier opponents, but he graded out at a 93. I mean, that's insanely high. He has great size, 6'4", 290 pounds. He rarely played inside. Like in his whole college career, I want to say it's double-digit snaps that he took inside of a 4-tech position. So he's going to need to develop that skill because I don't think he has the athleticism to live on the edge in the NFL. He's going to need to kick inside and probably be a 3-tech or a 4-eye in a 3-4 defense. But yeah, great use of hands. Yeah, lower body tightness will probably limit him on the edge, but I see him as a 3-tech, and I like him. Yeah,
look, any guy that size, and I think he was actually even bigger at the combine. I think he weighed in at over 300. But any guy that's that size and can get after the quarterback the way that he did in college, yeah, sign me up. They're not supposed to be able to do that at 300 plus pounds. I mean, the guy averaged 50 pressures a year during his college career. He lived in the backfield. And it's because he knows how to use that size and strength to his advantage. He was, like you said, just mauling what would, I guess, be considered lesser opponents who Bowling Green play every year. I haven't seen a ton of tape on this guy, but I've seen highlight reels, and he knows how to put up a highlight reel. So again, if the Seahawks are looking for someone that's going to help set that edge, but still provide a little bit of pass rush, they could do a lot worse than Carl Brooks.
Oh yeah. And I have him on the edge list, even though I project him as a 3-tech, because he doesn't have any film on the inside. I don't know how to evaluate him against other inside defensive line players. So I had to put him with where the film's at, and the film's at edge. So that's why he's on this edge list. You have Mike Morris. Why is Mike Morris your number 7?
Because this guy, I think, is being slept on. This is one of the, I mean, there's a lot of guys that have kind of shot up the draft charts because their size, speed, strength combination is ridiculous. So is Mike Morris. This is a 270 plus pound guy. I think he's 6'5". And you go back and watch him at Michigan, and he is tearing people up. He didn't put up amazing numbers. I think he had less than 10 sacks his total Carl's career. But he knows how to get in the backfield. He's great at stopping the run. He's fantastic with a set. If he has the power to just be a straight bull rusher and just push tackles into the backfield. But he's got a great swim move too. This guy has more than one trick. I'm really. I mean, it doesn't have the best testing numbers for his size. There are a lot of guys that are in that same range of like 270 plus pounds that put up a little bit, looked a little faster in shorts. He didn't put up a lot of great numbers at the combine, but go back and watch the tape. This guy can ball. Michigan isn't a slouch of a program. They play great competition up there. And the fact that this guy looked that good all year and is still being, drafted in some drafts in the late 4th and 5th rounds blows my mind because he's a manimal.
Yeah, he's somebody who I was intrigued going into the combine. Then at the combine, I had more questions. He, like my number 7, is somebody that I project to move inside in the NFL. I think a team is going to ask him to put on a little bit of weight, kick him into 3, 4-eye, 5-tech, right in that range. He's never going to move all the way over, but I think he'll be in that next step in on the line. He kind of lacks athleticism to be on the edge in the NFL, and that is kind of his limiting factor. Real high motor, exactly what you said. He is constantly getting after the quarterback. Just effort. He is going to find some way to win as he breaks down the weakness of his opponent. He had a really good 2022 production, 21 pressures, 9 sacks, really exploded on the scene.
Yeah.
All right. At number 6, still in that mid-tier range, I have Tuipulotu out of USC, and Adam has Felix and Anudike-Uzomah out of Kansas State. Tuipulotu showed the ability to play inside on passing downs, which is huge for NFL evaluation. Teams that know, okay, I have this guy who can come play on the edge during early downs. He has really good speed to power conversion. I mean, this is somebody who can be used in the pass rush game, but then also be a 3-tech on those 3rd and long, key important type of defensive sets when you need your pass rush unit in there. He does need to improve his hip flexibility and his bend when he's going around the edge. He has a tendency to be a little tight, which can widen out that turn, and that allows the offensive tackle the chance to reposition and catch up and let the quarterback step up in the pocket.
Yeah, dude, I like Tuli. I mean, Pac-12 is kind of like, the group that I watch the most, being a UW fan. So I got to see him play and see him put the hurt on some of those linemen that we talked about earlier last week. I like him. This is another one of those guys that I like you said, I think is probably more likely to kick inside than just be a straight stand up pass rusher in a 3-4. But Yeah, intriguing for sure. And another one of those guys that I think more rounded than some of the players we hire. Uh,
Yeah. I think we lost you there. Adam, are you still with us? All right, let's give him a chance to come back real quick, and then I will continue on. This is why we look. This is why we do these things, to see exactly how these players are going to develop and what we think these players could be. So I like to look at these mid-tier guys that'll go in those middle rounds, guys that can come in and be effective. These are high potential type of players. So just guys that are good developmental guys you're going to get good value in the late second, third, fourth, fifth round. These are guys that I think will help a team. They could help a team now. They could help a team in a couple years. All right. Looks like Adam is coming back. Let's add him here. Adam, are you there?
Oh, one sec, Rob. This is
Hey, let's.
All right. I can see you. Can you hear me?
I can see and hear you. That was weird.
Yeah. Hey, that happens, and that's what happens when you're live. So, thank you everybody for letting me ramble on about mid-round prospects. So, Adam, how do you feel about Felix and Anudike-Uzomah?
This is one of my favorite guys in the draft. And I think you're actually a little higher on him than I am. I mean, look, Kansas State's one of those schools that ever since we drafted Tyler Lockett to be our kick returner and he, made the Pro Bowl, I've been watching them religiously. There are a lot of guys. I've already talked about some of them. And we'll talk about even more as we get into other positions here in the draft. But I love guys coming out of K-State, and he's definitely one of those guys that I'm hoping the Seahawks are going to take a look at. I think there's other guys that are going to be available in the same range that they might be a little bit higher on. And in some cases, maybe they should be. There are definitely guys that have a pretty similar and in some cases better skill set. But K-State just puts out solid prospects. These guys are well-rounded players. They get coached up really well. These are all real high character players for the most part. And I think he falls in that category.
Yeah, I agree. In fact, I am a little higher on him, and you'll see that here in a minute. He had a really, really highly productive career there at USC. In 3 years, he had 100 tackles, 20 sacks, and 8 forced fumbles. So really effective and consistent in his productivity. He has an explosive first step and really good agility that he can use to get around that edge. And he can set an edge in the run game, and that is important and what will probably help him stand out in this year's edge class. Is we have a lot of pure pass rushers and guys that I think are situational pass rushers, and he's one of those guys who can help you out in both the run and the pass game.
Yeah, he's just such a solid prospect for me. I did watch a couple of interviews that he's had over the last couple of months, and this guy just seems like a Seahawk to me. He reminds me a lot in his attitude of and now I'm spacing on our names, a legendary pass rusher who, if it stayed healthy, we would have won the Super Bowl against the Patriots. And I don't know why I'm spacing on your name. I'm so sorry. In any case, this guy just looks like he loves playing. I mean, he's a very happy guy. He's smiling constantly, which I love, because when you look on the field, he doesn't look like he's a happy dude. He plays angry. So the fact that he's actually a really nice guy, I love. So yeah, this is like I said, one of my favorite players from this part of this position group in the draft, and I'd really love to see the Seahawks take a shot at him on day 2.
Yeah, in fact, there's a chance he could go pretty early in the second round, depending on how the first round falls, if there's a run on these edge type of players. Were you trying to think of Cliff Averill?
Thank you. I was.
All right.
That was the guy.
Before we get to the top 5, this is sort of a spoiler alert, but there are a couple players that we're not going to feature, but I think are worth acknowledging. So both of these players fell outside of our top 5s. And the first one is Will McDonald IV out of Iowa State. Listen, I like him. I really like him. He's just 6th on my list, and I really wanted to spotlight other middle round players. And so he didn't quite make the cut, though he is a highly touted prospect in this draft class. And then the next one will probably be a shock to some people, and that's Tyree Wilson out of Texas Tech. Did not make my top 5. I see him as a one-trick pony. He's kind of doesn't. I see Van Ness also as a one-trick pony, but Tyree Wilson doesn't have the potential for development in my eyes that I see in Van Ness. And I like his length, his athleticism, but I see him more as Deion Jordan than a player who's going to come in and change a franchise like other people are projecting. Honestly, he's off my board completely.
Yeah, I think, again, if we were just doing a straight top 10, both of those guys would be on this list for me. They would be probably closer to 10 than they would be 5. But yeah, I get why people are so high on both these players. I see it. But yeah, I don't think either of them is a real fit for the Seahawks. And I don't think that either of them are better than the players that I've got listed on my top 5, because like you said, yeah, they show great skill. They have good production in college, but I don't see where they're going to take that leap into the NFL. They don't look like they've got that next step. And I think these other guys do have the potential to take that next step and have already shown some of it in college. So.
Yep. So like I said, I think it was worth noting that they weren't on our board, but they are highly thought of prospects in this year's draft.
Yeah. Hopefully the Cardinals think they're both great and draft one of the two of them at 3.
There you go. All right. At number 5, I have Felix and Anudike-Uzomah out of Kansas State, and Adam has BJ Ojulari out of LSU. We just talked about Felix there, and like I said, I'm really high on this guy, highly productive. I like what he can do. What do you say? What do you see in BJ Ojulari that makes him your number 5?
A massive drive and ability to do anything he wants on the field. He obviously, this is not one of those guys that's being talked about as going in the first round. I think there are some mock drafts where he is going kind of later in the first round, which is where I see him going. This is a pretty well-rounded player. I mean, LSU is a good program. They play against top-tier talent. They produce top-tier talent. Ojulari has everything you'd want as a player. I think he's well-rounded. This guy, was an offensive star in high school. He was also a defensive star in high school, and obviously that's what he chose to stick with when he transferred to college. But he's a do-it-all guy. Yeah, I mean, if the Seahawks want to go with a pass rusher that can step right in and I think overtake guys like Darrell Taylor and even probably Boye Mafe as the guy to be their starter on the opposite side. Gosh, I suck. I'm so bad at names and I hate this. Number 10, our edge rusher, number 10. Then I think this is a perfect fit for the Seahawks. This is a do-it-all guy that I think will be a great compliment for us if we want to go with a pass rusher early. I think there's a chance he could fall to 37 and the Seahawks could grab him there. Or this is a guy that I think we could trade back up into the first round or even trade down the first round and kind of get him later in that like 25 to 30 range.
Yeah, I think you were thinking of Uchenna Nwosu.
I was. Thank you, Uchenna Nwosu. Thank you. I'm just going to fumble names all day today. That's the kind of day it is, guys. Sorry.
So BJ Ojulari is actually number 7 on my true rankings list. He's one step behind Will McDonald. But yeah, he's a real high character guy. Team captain. So somebody who brings leadership to the table. And that I believe that was players voted on captain. So really means a lot coming out of the locker room. I see him as a plus pass rusher, but he does have size concerns in run defense. And especially looking at Seattle's roster and how they performed last year, we could get to the passer. We had guys who could rush the passer, but we didn't have anybody who could stop the run. Well, we did. It was Ryan Neal, and he's now in Tampa Bay. So that's my concern, is I don't really see him as a run defender. That's something he's going to need to develop. But I think that's a lot due to his size, which is not something he's going to overcome.
He's a willing tackler. I mean, that's my. I mean, again, this is not one of the bigger guys. We're talking like a guy that's I think comes in just over 240 pounds, but he'll throw his body around. This guy's not afraid to take a hit or deal one out. So yeah, even though he might get bodied a little bit because of his size, I think he's got the skill to kind of overcome that and work around and still kind of come up as a pretty decent tackler in the NFL.
Yeah, I see him as a natural athlete. He uses the tools that he does possess really well. He's just somebody who isn't going to fight through a deuce block with a tackle and a tight end. So
might have a little bit of trouble with that. He could probably go. He could go underneath him. I think he's got good bend.
We'll have to see. And I definitely think he's somebody who is going to go in that late first through the middle second round. So real good prospect. He's definitely going to make somebody's team. All right. At number 4, I have Lucas Van Ness out of Iowa, and Adam has Myles Murphy out of Clemson. Lucas Van Ness grew up playing hockey. I love hockey. He's just reminds me of one of those big old defenders back there. He probably had a stick that you needed a pickup truck in order to carry it because it was so long. A huge guy, right? Just being back there brings that enforcer mentality. That's what I picture when I picture Lucas Van Ness on skates. He brings that attitude to football. And I'm not going to say he's inexperienced, but he didn't start playing football until the 8th grade. So he was steep learning curve through high school, got to Iowa. One of the knocks on Van Ness is that he's never actually started for Iowa. They brought him in situationally and put him in positions to succeed. And I echo that. I just see a lot of potential in him. It's very good strength and power. He has the speed to power conversion to play through blockers. And that's sort of his go-to. Like I said earlier, I see him right now as a one-trick pony. He is a power-only rusher. He sees the quarterback through your chest, and that's the way he's trying to get to him. So he really needs to develop more of a pass rush repertoire. He needs to get some of those tools into that toolbox. But I see him as somebody who has been learning and growing every single year. And that's why I think he can take the leap to make that next step and be productive at the NFL.
Yeah, guys that big and tall shouldn't run as fast as he does. I know he didn't show out at the combine. I think he'll still run under a 4.6, but he looks like he's a really fast guy on the field. That first step, he is engaged with his blocker before that tackle has a chance to get his hands on him. I mean, this guy's a sophomore. He's a kid. This guy, you're right. I think has time to develop. I mean, he's going to be 22, I think, when the season starts. So he's a young dude. And like you said, has only been playing football for not that long. And college football, he literally only played 2 years. So this guy's got room to grow. I'm actually a little bit higher on him than you are, just because, again, this guy's an athletic freak. Guys should not be that big, tall, and fast. And he's not a bad looking dude either. I mean, if we want to have our own Bosa brother, he's got that going for him. So it's a good head of hair on this kid.
Yes, he does. All right. So Myles Murphy out of Clemson. I'm really interested to hear how you rank him.
Why am I so high on Myles Murphy? I think I'm high on Myles Murphy for some of the same reasons you're high on Lucas Van Ness, because I think there's potential there. And it's not like this guy didn't have a great career in college. He did. And he's another one of those guys that you look at and you just go, that guy shouldn't be that big and fast. This is a real lanky guy. I think he's got room to put on some weight. Not a ton of weight, but I mean, he could definitely bulk up when he gets into the pro level. But one of the things I love about Myles Murphy is this guy already acts like an NFL player. Now that may be a good or a bad thing. He's definitely a little bit of a diva. But I don't necessarily know if that's a negative for the position he's in. I see this guy being able to come in and, I think he could end up being one of the top rushers in this class just because of his physical skill set.
Yeah, I like him. He's actually tied for number 5 on my board. I just chose to go with Felix and Anudike-Uzomah because you had Miles Murphy, so we could still talk about him. Yeah, he's a high-end prospect that fell off during the pre-draft whole process. Last summer, he was projected to go top 10. People were talking top 5 in the draft. And now he's somebody who is looking at the late teens to the end of the first round, possibly even falling out of the first round. But he's consistently a high production player. He does his job. He does his job well. And there's something to be said for that. He's a freaky athlete on the field with really good tools. Kind of like I said with Andre Carter, who he looks more athletic with a helmet on and a football in play than he did testing. So that's something that a team's going to have to work out with him. He has stiff hips and doesn't drop his base down in pass rush. That sometimes he negates his own leverage by doing that. So he can be taken completely out of plays. And all he has to do is bend his knees and drop his hips a little bit. And then he can go through people. So that's a little coaching thing that will be ironed out very quickly in the NFL. So
yeah, I'll say this: if the Seahawks were still working or were still running a 4-3 front, I don't think that Miles Murphy would be a guy that they would look at all. Because you talked about him on the field. He's a straight stand-up pass rusher. This guy did not get down into a 3-point stance very often, and didn't look good when he did. So which obviously that's obviously a coachable thing. I'm sure that the Seahawks could still work with that even if they were running the 4-man downs. But yeah, because we're committed to this 3-4 front. If we want a guy that's just going to be coming in and either spelling Nwosu or pass rushing on clear passing downs on the other side, if he's there at 20 and we're still looking or we still have a defensive lineman as a need, I would love to see the Seahawks grab him.
Yeah,
probably no earlier than that though.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens. I've seen him. He used to be mocked really high. Then he sort of fell out of the first round mocks. Now he's creeping back in. I've seen him as high as the Patriots. So we'll have to see where he ends up. But, wish the best for him. Hope everything works out. At number 3, we both have Nolan Smith out of Georgia.
Yeah, we do.
Freak athlete, right?
Yeah, say it again.
Truly one of those freak athletes, right? 4.39 in the 40, 41 and a half inch vertical jump, 128 inch broad jump. I mean, this guy has lower leg explosion. He can just take the top off. This guy is really athletic. I like him better at linebacker instead of like a true pass rush kind of rush every down type of guy. I don't see him as that situational pass rusher. I want to see him develop more well-rounded linebacker skills. I like him as a linebacker in the NFL than as a rush the passer edge. But it's good that he has tools that can contribute to both areas. He's a real physical defender, and he uses that athleticism on film. We knew he was going to test well because you saw it when he was chasing guys down from behind.
Yeah, I think the only reason that no one that he wasn't being talked about as much going into the draft is because of the defensive line that he played on. When Jalen Carter is one of your running mates, then you kind of get overlooked. But yeah, like you said, just a freak athlete. This guy's going to make a GM look really good. I think he's going to go a lot earlier than people think. I would not be shocked if he was the second pass rusher off the board behind the guy that I think we both have ranked number 1. I wouldn't be shocked, and I'd probably be a little bit disappointed if the Seahawks didn't find a way to get him, because I don't think they should take him at 5. I don't think he's that kind of guy. But if we can trade back, or this is another one of those guys, if he's there at 20, just take him.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Carter because I was watching a mock draft. I believe it was from Marcus Whitman, who's known as That Franchise Guy on YouTube. I believe it was one of the ones he was involved in. And he had the Seahawks taking Carter at 5 and Nolan Smith at 20 because Nolan Smith is a team captain, high character, good locker room guy. And so he had him going there in order to help his teammate, Carter, who has been having some issues, questions about maturity and work ethic, to kind of help him adjust to the NFL. You get a fantastic player, but you can also get sort of a mentor or a bridge into the NFL by taking both players. I thought that was a really unique take, and it was something that, honestly, I was a little sad that I didn't think of, but is a real good possibility because any way you can help your really highly touted draft pick ease into the NFL is worth it to me, especially when you get a player the caliber of Nolan Smith.
Yeah, look, I agree. I think it's very much in line with I think what a lot of teams have been doing with their rookie quarterbacks. Find a guy that they played with in college that they've got a good connection with, bring him in and make that transition easier. Look, if we draft Carter at 5, let's target Nolan Smith for later in the draft. I don't think there's a chance that he's there at 20. We're probably going to have to do a little bit of maneuvering to find him, but if that's the plan, that's a great freaking plan.
Yeah. Like I said, I wish I would have thought of it first. So
we can pretend you did and just didn't post it.
So at number 2,
not now. You've already said you didn't.
Not now. Yes. No, I'm all about admitting when I'm wrong and giving people credit when credit is due. So at number 2, I have Adetomiwa out of Northwestern. And this is where, Adam, you have Lucas Van Ness out of Iowa. Adebawore kind of blew me away as I was going through these prospects in this pre-draft time this year. Elite athleticism. I mean, this is a 280-pound human who ran a sub 4.5 40. He jumped almost 38 inches in the vert. Freaky athlete. At that size is crazy. He has 34-inch arms, which means he can extend and be able to keep distance from that offensive tackle to give him time to use his hands, which he uses very well in pass rush. He has a high motor. He is a quick gap penetrator. So I like him on stunts. I like him just hitting that gap hard. Real quick first step. Make the offensive linemen react a little faster than they're used to. There's a player that I know you're higher on at offensive tackle than I am, and that's DeWand Jones out of Ohio State. Adebawore gave Jones fits in their game. He did a lot of time chasing in that game. That's not what you want. You don't want your offensive tackle turning his back to the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, dude, Adebawore is a freak. I think I mentioned him, I think, a couple podcasts ago as a guy that Seahawks fans need to be watching. The only reason he's not on my list is because I knew he was on yours. This guy to me is probably the number one target. Maybe him and Felix. If the Seahawks are going to take two pass rushers early, then man, I hope it's Felix out of Kansas State and Adebawore, because that's a ridiculous duo of just ridiculously strong guys. Adebawore plays like Michael Bennett, just angry and fast and passionate, and he looks like a bodybuilder. There's no fat on this guy. The fact that this guy is that big and that, I mean, I can't remember his name. There was a guy that was I think a Baylor player a few years ago that everyone was like, how is this guy not being talked about more? Because he looked like he looked different than any other player. Like he was one of those guys that like tucked in his shirt so you could see his six pack. And he was a defensive line player. That's how this guy's built, but he doesn't brag about it. And I think he's going to have an NFL career, whereas the other guy, I can't remember his name, and it's because he wasn't drafted and didn't play in the league. So, physical freak. Love this guy.
Yeah. I like a humble player. I'm not real high on the diva, difficult players. Right? Go to work, do your job, be a teammate. That's what I love about him. And like you said, he's cut. He's built really well. Do we know from the combine, is there a shirtless pic of him and Pete Carroll?
No, but I think even Pete Carroll would be. I know Pete Carroll wasn't intimidated by DK Metcalf, But this guy's bigger than DK, so he might. If this guy took his shirt off, I think Carroll might just go, "Yeah, right, that's fine.
All right, yeah, we're good.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Well, coming in at number 1 is probably no surprise. Number 1 on both of our boards, we have Will Anderson Jr. I apologize to Will Anderson for leaving the junior off of our slide here, but Will Anderson Jr. out of Alabama. There's a lot of good. I had to dig a little bit. I had to find some things to say so I could have a well-rounded.
How do we knock this guy? Yeah.
Well, no, I'm not going to say that. Well, okay. So he is clearly the safest pick in this draft. If he's there, you pick him. He will be productive for you. But I don't think he is a franchise-changing player. So it's tough. You're in the top 5. How is this guy going to be? And to kind of bridge it for Seahawks fans, I see him a lot like Aaron Curry. Right? He was the safest pick in that draft. And he played well for the Seahawks. And then he went, I believe, to the Raiders after that, and then was out of the league. And now he's a pretty darn good coach who the Seahawks just lost to the Steelers, I believe.
Yeah.
But listen, Will Anderson has an elite first step, like absolutely elite. When he gets in the NFL, he will be top 10 in the NFL at speed off the snap, right? His bend around the edge is also in that elite category, right? He converts speed to power so that he can get to the quarterback. He's physical at the point of attack, be it a blocker in the pass rush game or a ball carrier when he's defending the run. That elevates his production against the run. Now, here's the thing that kind of got to me. He had a much better 2021 than 2022, and that's fine. We have some other players that we've spotlighted on our list who had that same sort of projection. But if you take a look at PFF grades, which admittedly are not perfect, but they give us a baseline, right? He is awesome against bad teams. Right? I mean, he had an over 80 grade against Utah State, University of Louisiana Monroe, Austin P, which I believe is an FCS school, and Vanderbilt, which is a bottom dweller in the SEC. But he's average against good teams. He had a less than 70 against LSU, Auburn, Ole Miss, Kansas State, Texas, Arkansas, and Tennessee. And I believe 3 or 4 of those games, he was in the mid to low 50s. His only 80-plus game against a good team was against Mississippi State. They finished 3rd in the SEC West. So I don't know how to project that because he has all these tools. He has sustained production while he's been in college. He has what you look for, but I don't see him stepping up when he needs to step up. And that's the thing that scares me. He's still number 1 on my list. You chart out the scouting report. He's still number 1 on my list. I just have some red flags that I wish I could get answered, but you can't really answer production versus team quality, I guess.
Yeah, look, depending on where what team this guy goes to, and I feel really bad for him if he goes to Arizona, because the reason I think you saw that dip in his production in 2022 is because he was the man in 2022. There were other guys during his sophomore year that the offense had to account for along that Alabama defensive line, and so he didn't see as many double and in some cases triple teams like he did in 2022, where everyone knew, hey, if we're going to do one thing in this game, we have to stop Will Anderson Jr. And so if he goes to a team like the Cardinals, where he has to be the guy, he might have a disappointing rookie season. And I don't think it's no knock on him. But if the NFL team can just focus on shutting him down because there's no one else they have to worry about along a defensive line, he's going to have a rough rookie year. If he ends up going to a team like the Seahawks, who have a guy on the other side that can take some pressure off of him in Uchenna-Nwosu, or if he ends up going to a team like the Lions that already have a pretty decent defensive front and a guy on the other side that can draw some of that pressure, I think he's going to be great. But he needs to be on a defense where he can be allowed to manipulate and dominate one-on-one tasks. And because if he goes to the NFL and he's got a 6'6" tackle and a 6'5" guard, shutting him down the whole time, it's going to be a little rough for him.
Yeah, I mean, he's a player who can't kick inside. He has to play out on the edge because he's with his frame. I believe I don't have it in front of me. I believe he's 6'3", 250. And
somewhere around there.
I don't see his frame being able to handle 25 more pounds. So
he's not one of those guys that's going to be able to build to get a lot bigger going in the NFL, which he may not need to do.
Need it.
But it's going to be if he can be allowed to take guys one-on-one and use his length and his bend, because he is great when he's allowed to do that, he'll dominate. But if he is a guy that the offense is going to be able to focus on, he's going to have some issues. But so will any of these guys. Look, none of the guys that we have listed below Will Anderson are going to be as good as Will Anderson in a one-on-one matchup situation, and none of them are going to be able to take on 2 blocks. Well, maybe Adebawore. But just because the man's insanely huge. He's clearly the best pass rusher in this class, the safest pick, like you said. But again, this is not. He may not end up being that generational talent. I think there's a team that's going to want him to be that. I don't think that's what he is. Yeah,
I'd like that you brought up Detroit, because I think Detroit is the dream destination for Will Anderson Jr. Maybe not his dream, like who he grew up rooting for or anything, but the dream scenario for where he'll fit in. They're a team on the rise. They have that pick because of the Stafford trade. So they're a much better team than picking 6th. So having another player, like you mentioned, like Hutchinson, will take a lot of pressure off and allow him to do what he does well, work against single blocks, and really build confidence. If I were him, I would hope that the Cardinals trade out of their pick, that there are 4 quarterbacks that go at the top of the draft, and the Seahawks take Carter or trade with somebody who's going to take Carter. Because that would be the dream scenario for Will Anderson. I think he would fit in really well on that Detroit team. And in this case, dropping a little bit would benefit him as a player than going 4 picks higher than that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the same could be said for the Seahawks. It's not quite as good of a situation, just because I don't think our defensive front, I don't think is quite as good as Detroit's. Not a knock on our guys, but we've done a lot of shuffling. We've got a lot of pieces here that we have no idea how they're going to fit in because we've never seen them play in the scheme. Whereas they're set, man. They know exactly who they are and what they need to do. So I agree that Detroit's the best fit. I don't think the Seahawks would be a bad fit though. If he's there at 5, like you said, draft him because he's the best defensive player in this draft. I know that we'll have a little debate about that when we do our interior defensive line guides, but for my money, because there's no character concerns with Will Anderson Jr. Not at all. So he would be my top defender. He is the top defender on my board. So
yeah, I would still take Carter, but at that point, I mean, you're picking between blue chip player and blue chip player. So
there's no bad decisions at 5.
No bad decision.
Except for Anthony Richardson. That's a bad decision at 5. Sorry, I had to get it in there.
Well, this has been our top 10 edge rankings. Thank you for listening. As always, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.